Let's talk about one of the most difficult IELTS speaking part 2 questions right now. That is, describe a uniform you wear. In this video, I'll give you great vocabulary, some useful advice, and show you a Band 9 answer and teach you how to read it with perfect English pronunciation. Sound good? Let's get started. I'm Francis, and on this channel, I help you pass your English exams like IELTS and Duolingo and reach advanced level English. So if that sounds useful, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our future videos. So we're looking at the question, describe a uniform you wear. And it could be a school uniform or it could be a work uniform. And we're going to do 3 things in this video. I'm going to give you some general advice, a few tips about this. We'll look at some really high-level vocabulary to impress the examiner. And then we'll read through the answer together, and it's a full Band 9 answer. So first of all, a quick bit of advice. So if you're like me, you might not wear a uniform. For example, I work from home and unless you call this my uniform, I don't think it really counts though. So if you don't wear a uniform now, then what you can talk about is a uniform you used to wear in the past. For example, in my answer, I talk about wearing a uniform at school, and that gives you the chance to use the past tense to show your high-level grammar. And if you don't wear a uniform, you can actually fill some time in your answer, because 2 minutes is quite long, right? You can fill some time by talking about why you don't wear a uniform. Let's move on to the vocabulary section now. We've got 9 things to look at, so we're going to go quite quickly. The first is mandatory. Mandatory means you must wear it. So a mandatory uniform, there's no choice. You must wear it. Then bog standard. Bog standard means totally normal, and it has like a not very good feeling. It has like, oh, it's just bog standard, like it's nothing special. Then number 3 is blazer. A blazer is like a jacket, but we talk about a blazer as being part of a school uniform. Then 4 is a business phrase, corner the market. And that means when you are the only company or the only provider of something for people to buy, so that, you know, you have a big advantage. You can charge any price that you want. And that leads us to the next one, which is something costs an absolute bomb. So if something costs an absolute bomb, it means it's very expensive. Next, we can say something is not my strong suit. That means it's something I'm not very good at, or it's something I don't know a lot about. Then a few more very natural expressions. Roll out of bed. That just means to get up. So you wake up and you roll out of bed. So the feeling of it is that you do it quite quickly. Then get on someone's nerves. So if I get on my parents' nerves, it means I annoy my parents. I make them angry. And then finally, a nice phrase that you can use. You know, when you've got your IELTS question and there are several things, you should say who it was, where it happened, how you felt about it. You can use this phrase. You can say, in terms of how I felt about doing something. For example, in my answer, I'll say, in terms of how I felt about wearing the uniform. And it's just a nice phrase that you can learn, and it starts your next sentence in quite a fluent way, and it just sounds quite natural to the examiner. So that's our vocabulary. Now let's look at the Band 9 answer. So there are 2 things to note in this answer. You can see some of the words are highlighted in bold. Those are the words either with a strong feeling or that are very important for the meaning of a sentence. And so we're going to stress those words. And then there's also some words which are underlined. Those are the words that are not very important, so we'll say them quite quickly. Okay? So we're going to read through it step by step, and then at the end, I will read it again and I'll give you a chance to repeat so that you can practice it yourself. All right, let's take a look. So to be honest, we always say, to be honest. To be honest, I don't wear a uniform anymore. I don't wear, it's quite a high tone. I don't wear a uniform anymore. I work from home, so I don't even have to wear smart clothes, never mind a uniform. So, smart clothes. I don't even have to wear smart clothes, never mind a uniform. So I'm gonna talk, so that it's going to. When we're speaking, we always say gonna. I'm gonna talk about a uniform I used to wear when I was in high school. Now, when I was in, all gets squashed together. When I was in high school. So, I went to a grammar school, which is a fairly old-fashioned type of school here in the UK. Here in the UK. And they were very big on traditions. So, wearing a school uniform was mandatory for everyone. No exceptions. And they were going to put the stress on no. And you can even do this. No exceptions. Then the next part, the uniform itself, and because now we're talking about the uniform, we put the stress on itself. The uniform itself was quite formal too. We had the bog standard stuff like a shirt and trousers, but we also had to wear a tie and a navy blue blazer. So again, important, unusual word, blazer, so we stress. A navy blue blazer. The only place you could get the blazers was at the school shop. Was at the school shop. So they basically cornered the market, and that meant that now that's difficult. That meant that the blazers cost an absolute bomb. That one's quite hard. Make sure you practice that. In terms of how I felt about wearing it, so there's that phrase. So we're going on to the next point of the question you should say. And we're using this phrase to introduce that point. In terms of how I felt about wearing it, I was basically fine with it. That means I was more or less okay. I was basically fine with it. It did mean that I didn't have to worry about fitting in, at least in terms of my fashion choices. And let me assure you, fashion was not my strong suit back then, and some would say it still isn't. So we're making a little joke there. We're making fun of ourselves. So we're saying fashion was not my strong suit back then. It means I didn't know about like clothes and how to look good. And some people say I still don't. Then the next line. So it was kind of a relief not to have to spend hours trying on different outfits every morning. I'd roll out of bed and just throw on the uniform. So it's that feeling very quickly getting out of bed and just put the clothes on. One thing that got on my parents' nerves was that I kept growing out of the uniform. I kept growing out of the uniform. They'd have to buy a new blazer at least once a year, if not twice. So growing out of something means I got too big. And so the clothes became too small. So, notice that I've put the stress on so there, because when you say it like this, so, that shows that you're coming to the end of your answer. And that's really good. That's called signposting. That means that you're telling the examiner, either with your words or with your tone of voice, like here, that the end of your answer is coming. So, that's the uniform that I used to wear. That I used to wear all through high school. So, we're going to go through and I will read each sentence or maybe two sentences together. And then I'm going to make a short pause, a little space. And your job, because this is an interactive video, it's not just for you to watch. Your job is to stop the video, and read the answer. Try and say it just how I say it. Okay? So let's start with the first two sentences. So to be honest, I don't wear a uniform anymore. I work from home, so I don't even have to wear smart clothes, never mind a uniform. Okay, now stop the video and you say that same thing. Have a try now. Okay, let's continue. So I'm going to talk about a uniform I used to wear when I was in high school. You'll go. Okay. So I went to a grammar school, which is a fairly old-fashioned type of school here in the UK. Your turn. And they were very big on traditions. So wearing a school uniform was mandatory for everyone. No exceptions. See if you can do it with the finger as well. No exceptions. Your turn. Okay, very good. Let's continue. The uniform itself was quite formal too. We had the bog standard stuff like a shirt and trousers, but we also had to wear a tie and a navy blue blazer. Your turn. Okay. The only place you could get the blazers was at the school shop, so they basically cornered the market, and that meant that the blazers cost an absolute bomb. Again, very difficult. Have a try a few times. Have a try now. Okay, let's continue. In terms of how I felt about wearing it, I was basically fine with it. It did mean that I didn't have to worry about fitting in, at least in terms of my fashion choices. Okay, and let me assure you, fashion was not my strong suit back then, and some would say it still isn't. Good. So it was kind of a relief to not have to spend hours trying on different outfits every morning. I'd roll out of bed and just throw on the uniform. Okay. One thing that got on my parents' nerves was that I kept growing out of the uniform. They'd have to buy a new blazer at least once a year, if not twice. And finally, so, remember to practice that. So, that's the uniform that I used to wear all through high school. Okay, very good. And make sure that if you want to keep practicing, you do so. Obviously, the more you practice, the more fluent you'll be, and the better your pronunciation and intonation will be. And all of that together will help your English sound more natural and help your score to improve. Now, this answer is part of a very special product that we have here at Last Minute English, at Last Minute English HQ. And that product is the IELTS Speaking New Answer Package that has all of the latest questions from the IELTS Speaking Test and the latest answers. And you can get that for free on our website, and the link is just down here under the video, so check that out. If you found this video useful, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Francis. Good luck in your IELTS exam, and I'll see you next time.